everyone. Ready to dive into something interesting?
Let's do it.
Today, it's board diversity and innovation.
A hot topic.
Right. There's this whole debate. Do women on boards, do they play it safe? Or are they the secret sauce for innovation?
Yeah, you hear both sides.
We're tackling this head on today with some fascinating research that really throws a wrench in those simple takes.
It really digs deep, gets past the surface level. What I found so interesting is that it boils down to context.
Okay, so context is key.
Totally.
For our listeners, can you break down what you mean by context in this case?
Sure thing. The study uses this term, performance relative to aspirations, or PRA for short.
PRA, got it.
Basically, it's how a company's doing compared to what they want to be doing. Are they hitting their goals or are they falling behind?
Makes sense. So how does that tie into the whole women on boards and innovation thing?
Okay, so picture this. A company is underperforming. They're in what the study calls negative PRA. Pressure's on, right?
Definitely. Strapped for cash, morale might be low, big risk to make any big changes.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. The study found that in these negative PRA situations, companies with more women on their boards, they actually filed fewer patents.
Oh, wow. Okay, so does that back up that idea, that women are more risk-averse? At least when the company's not doing so hot.
It seems that way, right? You could see it as a don't rock the boat mentality.
When you're already taking on water, yeah.
Exactly. So instead of chasing some big, risky innovation, maybe they're thinking, let's stabilize things first. Let's get back on track before we go making waves.
Survival mode changes everything.
It really does.
But here's where I was surprised. What about those companies on the brink? Like, almost bankrupt.
Yeah, talk about high stakes.
So you'd think it'd be total chaos, either playing it super safe or making these wild last-ditch attempts to survive.
Right. But the study, it threw me a curveball there.
Yeah.
They found that companies near bankruptcy, if they had more women on their boards, actually filed for more patents.
Whoa. So it flips the script completely.
It challenges that whole risk-averse assumption, doesn't it? Makes you wonder if there's something else going on.
It does make you think. So maybe those do-or-die situations, it's like the rule book goes out the window.
Maybe. I mean, this study didn't go into the why behind it, but it's definitely food for thought.
It is. Like, does that desperation, does it change how decisions are made?
Right. Do women on boards, do they become more likely to embrace those bold, innovative moves when the company's back is against the wall? We don't know for sure.
We're left with more questions than answers.
That's the best kind of research, the kind that keeps you thinking.
100%. But we have to remember these are trends, right? Averages across lots of different companies. We can't forget about the individual women and their own styles.
Exactly. This isn't about saying all women are this way or that way.
Right. But it does seem like when a company's doing well, when they're exceeding those aspirations we talked about, that's when things get really interesting.
Tell me more.
Well, it seems like having women on boards in those good times, it can really boost innovation.
I knew it. There's something about that we're on a roll energy,
It's like they've got that financial cushion and the confidence to match. It seems like in those situations, having those diverse viewpoints from women on the board, that's when it really shines.
Like, let's shoot for the moon, we've got nothing to lose.
Exactly. But it's not just about having money in the bank, right?
You're right. The study also looked at available slack.
Slack, okay. Not in the taking it easy sense, I'm guessing?
Definitely not. They're talking about resources, but not just cash on hand. It's more like, do you have untapped potential, extra capacity in your production line, that kind of thing.
So it's like having that wiggle room to experiment without putting everything on the line.
Exactly. That freedom to try new things, maybe even fail a little, without bringing the whole company down.
And what did the study say about available slack?
They found that just like when a company is performing well, having more slack made that positive link between women on boards and innovation even stronger.
Fascinating. It's like having more women on the board helps companies use those extra resources wisely when it comes to innovation. But hold on, let's rewind a bit. We keep saying innovation, but isn't there a difference between like small improvements and those big groundbreaking discoveries?
You're totally right, and the study makes that distinction. It's not all the same.
So how does that play into this whole thing? Do women on boards approach those different types of innovation differently?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And the study found something pretty interesting there too, but we'll save that for after the break.
So, before the break, we were tracing that thread between women on boards and the types of innovation they seem to favor. It almost sounds like having more women on the board could make a company more likely to focus on those incremental innovations, those steady improvements to existing products or services. It makes you wonder, what about those radical innovations, the ones that completely shake up an industry?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? It's like we're trying to crack the code of how innovation really works. This study didn't directly answer whether women on boards are less likely to back those big, risky moonshots. But it did get me thinking about the nature of radical innovation itself. I mean, are these big leaps forward inherently riskier? Do they require a different leadership style to succeed?
I'm with you. Those are the million-dollar questions.
Yeah.
I'm picturing those late-night brainstorming sessions where someone throws out a completely wild idea. Do some boards shut those ideas down immediately, while others are more likely to say, okay, let's entertain this for a minute?
Exactly. And the study we're looking at didn't offer a definitive answer on that front. It's just too soon to say for sure. But there's a growing body of research out there exploring this very topic. One idea that's particularly interesting is that radical innovations often require a company to completely upend the way things have always been done. They force you to disrupt those existing power structures, and sometimes even the power structures within your own company.
That's a really interesting point. It makes you wonder, if you've had to fight hard to earn your place at the table, are you then less likely to want to flip that table over, even if flipping the table might lead to something amazing down the line? It's a tough call.
It really is, and it cuts to the heart of how different people approach risk. There's another theory I find fascinating. It suggests that radical innovations are often shrouded in so much uncertainty, right? You're essentially venturing into the unknown, and the chances of stumbling or failing are much higher. And as we've already seen, this study highlights how risk tolerance can be influenced by a whole host of factors, including gender and the specific context of a situation.
That's a really important reminder for us, I think. It's tempting to oversimplify and say, well, this study seems to suggest women are more risk-averse, but the reality is far more nuanced. Even if women on boards are generally a bit more risk-averse, that doesn't mean they'll never back those bold, game-changing ideas.
Exactly. And frankly, wouldn't be boring if they did. A diversity of approaches is what makes things interesting.
100%. And it's why we can't emphasize this enough. This study is showing us trends, averages, across lots of different companies. There are bound to be women on boards out there who are championing radical innovation left and right, and men who are taking a more cautious approach.
You're spot on, and that's what makes these discussions so much richer than just looking at a spreadsheet of numbers. It's about acknowledging those individual differences while also looking for those larger patterns that can give us a deeper understanding of what drives innovation.
So let's bring this back to our listeners for a moment. If someone's out there listening to this deep dive and they're thinking about building their own company, what should they take away from all this?
If there's one thing I hope listeners remember, it's this. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that simply adding more women to your board is some magical recipe for instant innovation. The reality is far more complex and nuanced than that. Don't get me wrong, diversity is crucial, but it's not a quick fix, and it's certainly not a guarantee.
So it's not as easy as saying, add women to the board, check that box, and voila, innovation will explode. There's more to the equation, right?
Exactly. It's about creating a culture where those diverse perspectives can truly flourish, where people feel empowered to voice their ideas, even the wild ones, and where calculated risk-taking is encouraged, not punished.
So it's less about checking a box and more about cultivating an environment where diverse thinking can thrive. It's about fostering a culture where people feel safe to challenge the status quo and push boundaries, even if it means rocking the boat a little.
You got it. That's where the real magic happens, when you have a mix of people from different backgrounds, with different perspectives and experiences, all contributing to the creative process.
Speaking of diverse perspectives, it's fascinating to me that this study focused on patents. I mean, that makes sense, right? Patents are a pretty tangible way to measure innovation, especially in certain fields. But it makes you wonder, what about all those other forms of innovation that don't fit neatly into a patent application?
That's such a great point. Patents are often the go-to metric for measuring innovation in fields like technology, engineering, those more technical industries. But what about the arts, design, social entrepreneurship? I mean, these are fields where innovation is just as vibrant and essential, but patents might not be the standard measure.
Exactly. Think about those game-changing business models, disruptive marketing campaigns, or innovative ways of engaging with a community. Are the same dynamics we've been discussing at play in those realms? Or are there entirely different factors to consider?
Now we're getting to the really juicy questions. It makes you wonder, right? Does board diversity impact these less tangible forms of innovation in the same way it seems to impact patent activity? That's a question researchers are just beginning to unpack. And honestly, I don't think we have a clear answer just yet.
This is what I love about these deep dives. They always leave us with more questions than answers.
That's what keeps us curious.
It certainly does.
Okay.
And on that note, we'll take a quick break. But don't go anywhere, folks, because when we come back, we're diving even deeper into this fascinating topic. We'll be exploring the relationship between women on boards, risk-taking, and those game-changing innovations that shake up entire industries. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Deep Divers. We're wrapping up our exploration of women on boards and innovation, and I have to say, this study has really challenged some of my assumptions. Before the break, we were pondering how this whole equation plays out in fields where patents aren't the standard measure of innovation. What about those aha moments in the art studio, or those groundbreaking business models that disrupt an entire industry?
It's a whole other layer of the innovation onion, isn't it? We can't always rely on patents or research grants to gauge what's truly groundbreaking. And this is where things get really exciting, because we're entering a space where there's still so much to discover. We've talked a lot about risk, and I think it's a really important thread to pull on here. When you think about those less tangible forms of innovation, the ones that don't fit neatly into a patent application, how do you even begin to measure the risk involved?
That's such a good point. It's one thing to assess the risk of, say, investing in a new manufacturing process that might or might not work, but how do you quantify the risk of greenlighting a film with a completely unorthodox storyline, or going all in on a marketing campaign that challenges all the conventional wisdom?
Exactly. It's a whole different ballgame. And it makes you wonder, does the presence of women on boards impact risk tolerance differently in these more creatively driven fields? Do they bring a different lens to evaluating those less tangible, harder to quantify risks?
It really makes you think about how we define risk in the first place. Is it purely a numbers game, a matter of crunching the data and assessing the potential for financial gain or loss? Or is there an element of gut feeling, of intuition, of being able to spot that spark of brilliance, even when it comes in an unexpected package?
I love that you're bringing that up, because I think it gets to the heart of what diversity of thought is all about. When you have a group of people with different backgrounds, experiences, and ways of seeing the world, you're naturally going to have a wider range of perspectives on what constitutes risk and how to manage it effectively.
It's like that old saying, if you ask the same questions, you'll get the same answers. But if you want to uncover those truly groundbreaking, innovative ideas, you need a diversity of voices and perspectives at the table, challenging assumptions and pushing each other to think differently.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that, I believe, is the most valuable takeaway from this entire deep dive. Whether we're talking about patents or film scripts, tech startups or social impact initiatives, the underlying principle remains the same. Diversity of thought is the lifeblood of innovation.
It's about creating an environment where those diverse perspectives can not only exist but thrive, where people feel empowered to speak their minds, challenge the status quo, and take those calculated risks that lead to breakthrough moments.
Absolutely. It's not just about having a seat at the table. It's about having a voice that's heard, valued, and integrated into the decision-making process.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this. Cultivate curiosity. Embrace diverse perspectives, and never underestimate the power of asking those what-if questions. The next big innovation might just be hiding in plain sight, waiting for a fresh perspective to bring it to life.
That's it for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep those brains buzzing.
And keep diving deep.